Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope by this time you've watched the introduction that I've done a couple of days ago. And today what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the processes from a brand new box of brass, what to do, and also then some ammunition that's been shot, and now the reloading processes thereafter. So there's significant differences between new and shot ammunition. So first thing, when you get your box of new brass, you'll see they are, this is now specifically Lapuas, and you can have a look here. They are quite nice and shiny, and they're all brand new. There's nothing in the back there's no carbon on them. So these are nicely prepared brass for you. You can also see there's an annealing ring around it, so it's been annealed as well. Okay, so these specific cases are 308 Winchester. There's other manufacturers as well, but this is the originator that's stamped on there. So you'll see the name Lapua, and you'll see 308 Win on the back of the head stamp. Okay, so what we start doing is you get yourself one of your trays. It doesn't matter which tray you have, what brand or whatever you've got here, but the process basically starts from there, and you can load up your tray with your new brass. And now we're going to go from there. So once you've got your tray full, there's 50 in this specific block here, then we can start with the process. Now firstly, if you are not going to be doing any competitive shooting with it, or you're only going to use it to do a little bit of plinking, 100 meters, then there's a couple of steps that you really don't need to do, but there's a few that is absolutely necessary. Now, before you start reloading, there's one piece of equipment, or if I can say that is essential to your reloading, and that is a can of this. We're looking at what we call here Doom. It's Doom. It's a mosquito repellent or multi-insect repellent, and what you do with this has actually got nothing to do with the reloading, but you spray it in the air, and you spray it around your ankles, and that one is for the fleas, and now you can start reloading. Otherwise the mosquitoes are going to eat you up, and they carry you out here as well. They are massive. Okay, so once we've got that process done, we can start with the reloading or the preparation of the case. Now, as you can see here, round about there, you've got your annealing area where it stopped. The front part of the neck is a blue silvery sort of color, so that tells me the annealing on this has been done well. It comes from Lapua, so it's been done quite well. One of the steps that's of utmost importance right from the start is to cut your length of your brass. So when we get to the length, case length trimmers, we will show you how to cut your length to exact specification every time. Once you've done your brass length cutting, then you deburr it inside slightly, and then you also deburr it on the outside slightly. It's just to take that little bit of a rough edge away from that. Then the next step that you can do here, and for certain cartridges that you're going to use for accuracy, you need to then do the primer pocket. Okay, so the next step that you have to do is the primer pocket uniforming. Now you'll say, but this is Lapua brass and it's 100% perfect and so on. Well, let's just have a look at how perfect all the brass is. I've got over here one of K&M, that's a primer pocket uniforming tool, so that will cut the inside of the primer very accurate. Now let me explain to you on the whiteboard here what I mean by that. So and then I'll show you the practical situation here, what's the setup there by seating and setting a primer properly. Okay, so follow me over here. Okay, so what we have in the 308, so you've got your neck and your shoulder and the body, and here you've got your rim, and there's your primer pocket, and you're going up there on the other side of the rim, and there you've got your neck. Okay, on the inside you will have a wall that is fairly uniform up till about here, and then it will go bigger, and also the same thing here, it will be big, and it will go thinner until you've got a uniform neck again up to there. And then part of your, that is now your flash hole. So literally there's a hole through there, so it's not just, so if you cut it in half, it will have a piece like that. So that is your basic construction of the cartridge. Now if we can take this part over here, this specific part over here, and we're going to draw it much bigger, so it's to emphasize the actual part that needs to be addressed. That part of your primer pocket, if we look at it, it will look something like that. So there it goes up into your flash hole, it comes down, and you will have a round part over there as well. Okay, this is part of the manufacturing process, and basically all the cartridges that's made, or any cases that's made, it's either punched in or it is cut in, but the cutters get blunt after a while and you need to get rid of that. So what the uniforming tool does, it cuts away this round part over here, so you get a square part that sits like that, and here that sit like that. The reason for that is, if you look at your primer itself, your primer has the cup, okay, and then you've got the anvil, that is the part that makes everything important. Okay, so that'll go in at a slight angle, it sits there, and it goes into, and your the explosive that sits round about here, and this is now what makes the whole rifle or the whole cartridge go bang eventually. This is a mixture of different products. It's normally lead stiffenate that will ignite the primer, and will, with the flash going out, it will ignite your powder inside here. So what you need to do is, if you have a look at the angle of the corner there, if you insert it, you insert it in that round part, and you have a corner which you don't want. You want that part to be square, 100% square, so that this part of your cup of the primer is seated properly in the corner of the primer pocket. So what this does, when we uniform the case, we take that part of the primer pocket away and that part of the primer pocket away. So then you sit with a nice square primer pocket. Now the reason for that now further is, if you seat your primer inside here and you do not seat it properly, you will have the cup sitting over here. Okay, I'm drawing it with a little bit of a space, but it's actually quite a nice gas fit, and your cup will protrude out of the bottom of the case, and it will sit over there. So the cup will sit something like there, and your anvil will sit there. And that is not what you want. So what you want is that part and the anvil. So that part over here, the cup and the anvil, if it's got a rounding still, you will have difficulty to what we call setting the primer. So it's not just a matter of seating the primer, you must also set the primer. And this comes in with uniforming it. So you get this part over here being able to be pressed in right to the end of your primer pocket. So it will go in right over there, and this whole bottom of your primer won't stick out. It will sit then slightly behind the actual bottom of your head. So then you'll have that sitting over there, and with that process, the lead stiffenate that was sitting over here would now be sitting over there. So the anvil is slightly pressed into the explosives that sits over here, and that is what we call it's setting the primer. So if you seat your primer and your primer sticks out a fraction, you might get misfires. Your accuracy is not always the best. Sometimes when you take that same misfired round and you cock your rifle or the bolt, and the second time it will go off, only because the first time that you've shot, it will make a little bit of an indent over here from your firing pin, and it will bring the lead stiffenate into contact with the anvil, and your next shot will be a successful one. So that is one of the reasons what happens when you do not set your primer properly. So the uniforming part of the primer pocket is quite an important part of the whole process. The next one, and is also going to be part of the process over here, is many a time when you get your cases, it depends on what brand case you get. Others are machined, some of them is punched. So you get on this side here, you get a little bit of burrs. If you look at it on a round side, there's burrs here because it's been punched. What I've also even found is that punched little hole that's about 1.6 millimeters thick. Then you sit here with a little bit of brass on a small thin piece over here. So that is in the way of progressing the flame that's coming out of here properly. So that piece of brass sitting over there, it will try all sorts of things, and your flame will not ignite properly, so you will get some funny stuff there. It will most probably break off in the first time, so then that will be missing, but the next one, then you will have a proper ignition of your powder inside. That is where we come with the second part there about of the preparation of your case, is to uniform your flash hole. So that flash hole uniformer, and we'll get to that in detail when we get to that specific place, is you will, instead of just this round little part that's going through there, you will give it a nice angle there, and only a little bit. It's not much. You're looking there at maybe 0.2 or 0.3 millimeters of an angle, and that will help you right from the start with evenly spread ignition of the primer and the flash going into the powder. So that helps then there with the accuracy of the burning rate of your powder further on. So that's the next one up that we will properly discuss. These two over here, the uniforming of the flash hole and the uniforming of your primer pocket, is only done once. You don't need to do that every time. So this is a once-off right in the beginning of brand new brass. So it is some people might thought, oh, I must do it again. No, it's not. It's a once-off. You do it to prepare your brass right from the beginning. The next thing that you also do then once, and that is if you go in for competition style shooting, is to check the thickness of your wall right around. So you have a case that's, if you look at the case, you don't have that sort of thing. Okay, if you have this sort of thing here, where your case neck thickness differs or varies at different spots on the neck, then you will have a problem with case concentricity. The grip will be different, and then some people ask, okay, but when do you need to do that? Must I first fire form the case, or can I do it the second time round? Or if I have old brass, can I still do that? You can, to a certain extent, if you have a very tight competition type chamber. But the best thing to do is with a neck trimming tool, is to cut the thickness of this wall to the right thickness right around, and that you do with your case neck trimmer. And you do it the first time when you start with your initial processing of the case. The reason for that is, if you look at the thickness over here, and you have a thin part over here, it's like I say, I'm exaggerating a little bit here. It might not be that bad, and you've got a very thick part over here, and that case is fired in your chamber. The weakest link is over here. So here you will have a stretching of your brass much more than what you get in this area over here, and you will weaken the brass over here. So that's why it's better to trim your brass right from the start, the neck specifically, as waiting for a second or a third round and see, I want it a chamber fit, nice chamber fit, and so on. So that is not the best thing. That there, if you can trim it out to that ring over there, then your expansion of the neck itself will be equal to all sides. So that is one of the other things that's very important, but that's mainly for the guys that goes into the long range and the bench rest type and accurate shooting, doesn't matter with whatever caliber you do it. So the neck trimming of your new brass is also quite an important thing. So if you can get back to this here. So now we've spoken about the brass on the inside, the excess brass in the inside of your flash hole, and also on the inside of the case of the flash hole itself from the inside of the case, and the primer pocket to trim that out. Now if you're going to have a look very close by to that one over there, you'll see there's no marking or anything on the inside of it. So it's brand new and nothing has been done to this case. So let me just show you what happens, or what can happen with even a good brass if you cut the primer pocket. So this page is clean at the moment, so I'll just give it a little bit of a run in, and then let's see what happens when you do that. So this you can just turn in by hand. It's very simple. It doesn't take a lot. So if you can have a look at that, I'll try and bring the paper closer. It's not much, but there you can see some brass on there. So that is what came out of right on the inside of the brass. If you can have a look at that, you'll see a thin shiny ring now on the edge of the primer pocket. So that is uniforming your brass, and that is really part of the most overlooked parts for accuracy, is just doing that little bit. That is a fraction of a grain of brass that came out of this. In some other cases you will get a lot that comes out of it. These are premium brass, so it's normally not a lot that comes out of this type of brass. Okay, so that is for new brass. So you start off with that, with all the processes: cutting length, primer pocket, deburring, cutting your flash hole, and then trimming your neck thickness. That is if you go for the advanced levels of your reloading skills. Okay, so I'm going to give you a break here, and then I'll show you the processes and what you have to do with fired brass.